The 104th Cali Clasico has now come and gone for the San Jose Earthquakes. The tifos are great, the halftime show was incredible, but the on-field performance was simply not enough. What should have been a convincing win against a mediocre opponent ended up as a 1-1 loss for the Quakes. Welcome back, Quakesholics. In this video, we'll be covering last weekend's matchup between the San Jose Earthquakes and the LA Galaxy at Sanford Stadium, the Cali Clasico. So let's talk about this game. The starting 11, notably we see two changes from the midweek game in Dallas. Kay comes in for Harkes and Judd for Josef Martinez. See this before the match, I had a bad feeling about this, I'm not going to lie. This isn't anything against Kay or Judd though. The LaRue-Harkes midfield has proven to be a pivotal part of the 3-4-3 success for the Quakes. The two central midfielders are required to be able to flip a switch from defense to offense and back and forth in an instant and somehow cover the whole field between the two of them, because there's no traditional center defensive mid or a number 10. They're the main block of defense in the middle of the field and the outlet for playing through the middle of the field. And between those two players, my perception is that Harkes is the one that really shines in the defensive aspect of that role. So to not have him available for such an important game was honestly a bit discouraging. But if Bruce Arena did feel like between the two games, Harkes could only play one, in hindsight, I think this did work out because Galaxy does rely way more on their wingers than they do on playing through the middle of the field, whereas Dallas with Lucho Acosta are clearly a much greater threat through the middle. And Arena did also say that these changes were in part a result of the longer match duration in Dallas because of the weather delay and the outrageous amount of stoppage time. And I checked, and for reference, Galaxy made 3 changes from their midweek lineup in Colorado, which saw similar weather delay and posed about the same amount of travel time. And as for Judd, it's undeniable that he's been earning the minutes this season. However, his performances off the bench are typically what he's best known for. The whole grit mentality is more so a game finisher, not really a plan A. And that I do think we unfortunately saw play out in this game. We saw him have a strong first half, a strong fighting spirit, and honestly, he did get in the head of the opposition. At the end of the first half, we saw him walking in the tunnel and really going at it verbally with various Galaxy players. But unfortunately, it seems like that word count was his highest stat on the night with only 1 shot and not even on target. When Josef Martinez eventually did come in, it seemed like he struggled to integrate himself with the attack. The balls he did receive were often with his back turned to goal, and he couldn't find a way to turn and play out of that. At the end of the game, his numbers were honestly even lower than Judd's. Of course, hindsight is 2020, but I would have loved to see the reverse here. Give Josef Martinez more time in the game to let him make his mark, and let Judd come on late in the game as that energy booster the team could have used in this game. To cover some positives though, the obvious bright spots for this team were Bo LaRue and Daniel. Bo LaRue really got this game started when he delivered his third and so far best goal for the Quakes. From distance, calls for the ball, a light touch to set it up, and with no hesitation sends it to the upper right pocket of the goal. Of everything that happened in this game, I think this is the only thing worth remembering and will definitely be talked about for years to come. The hometown kid who grew up going to these same Stanford games had his moment in front of his fans, his friends, and his family. Not as a one-off game or a one-off lucky goal, but a perfectly calculated and taken shot. In front of this enormous 40,000 person crowd, he makes his moment to further cement himself as the brightest spot for this team this year. There was already little to no room to debate his spot on this team, but now with every passing game, a new debate is going to form of when he'll get that call up to the national team, of whether he'll be considered for the national team to hopefully represent the United States in the World Cup next year. And at this rate, why not? When you look at his trajectory over the past year, there's no reason to think that there's any limit to Bo's game. What we've seen unfold in these now 20 or so games has been truly spectacular. And I don't say this to put pressure on him. He's still young, he's developing, and needs to be given more time to flourish even more. I just say this so we're all aware of what's happening and to enjoy it, because a player like this, to come from our own backyard, doesn't happen often. The other bright spot was actually called out by Bo himself. Daniel had a stellar game, making 5 saves on the night, and half of those were honestly just game-defining shot stops. Daniel truly is one of the best goalkeepers in this league. First in saves per 90, second in goals prevented, and second in save percentage, trailing first by a mere 0.1%. Basically first place in that category. Had it not been for Daniel in this game, the Quakes would have lost, plain and simple, and this conversation would be so different. But that's about where the truly bright spots end. Chicho had a pretty good game, coming close to goal on 2 occasions, I believe, and being the only player to get people excited multiple times throughout the game. DeJuan Jones, I thought, also played a pretty good game, regularly finding himself in the box or with multiple touches in the opposition's final third. And of course, Cristian Espinosa had another performance where he led the team in chances created. But overall, this just felt like a bad game for the Quakes. Yes, the scoreline was 1-1, and while a point isn't to scoff at or disregard, it just is not enough. The Galaxy were notoriously more dangerous in this game. Mind you, a Galaxy that has 1 win in now 20 matches. A Galaxy that is missing key players due to injury and has yet to replace key players from the 2024 championship team. A Galaxy team that has been on the road since their midweek game in Colorado, which saw a worse weather delay than our game in Dallas. A Galaxy team that is the most down in the dumps they have ever been, and no team in this league's history has been so bad halfway through a season. How a team that boasts about being first in goals, expected goals, shots, and whatever other attacking stat, and is touted to be the most dangerous attack in the league, how they can't put more than one goal past such an abysmal opponent is disappointing from a sporting sense and just unacceptable for what this rivalry is. And nothing sums this up better than having to watch the drone show after the game and seeing the most epic moments in this rivalry come to life. The Wando salute, the Lenhart pull-ups on the goal, the Shea Salinas stoppage time winner, and so many other moments that have defined how epic these clashes used to be, how much of an advantage it was to play at Stanford, and how, with enough grit, the Goonies would find a way to get the job done. I was just sitting there thinking to myself what could have been, and honestly, what should have been. Had Chicho's shot in the first half gone a few inches to the right, or his header in the dying moments of the game gone in, or had Buddha been subbed in even, 5 minutes earlier, this could have all been so different. Instead, another year goes by of not being able to get a victory at Stanford. It's a shame, really, that we weren't able to capitalize on such an honestly easy opportunity. Instead, the perception of this is that this inept opponent was able to come into our house and outplay us for large stretches of the game and finish this game stronger than we did. And for that reason, I call this a 1-1 loss. And while I probably have a much harsher outlook on the situation, I do think there is a level of disillusionment amongst fans with this whole Stanford experience. Like every other year, there have been complaints about difficulty with parking, either the pricing, the wait times, the chaos. It just doesn't seem like there's a good option that doesn't include a 20-minute walk. On top of that, the drive is pretty out of the way for most fans. There's also complaints about no alcohol being sold in the stadium. The stadium security also is just incapable. The Galaxy fans didn't even travel like they usually do due to fears of immigration raids. And even then, there were still reports of fights breaking out in the stadium. Sure, over 40,000 tickets were sold, but it didn't feel like there was ever a crowd advantage for the Quakes. The Ultras tried stadium-wide chants, Seismic Union tried the Beat LA chant, but as a whole, the crowd just did not get behind them. And it makes sense. There's a lot of casual fans or first-timers that the Quakes are just trying to convert to regular fans for these kind of marquee matchups. And I get that. And I think it's awesome that people can experience these games for the first time, and hopefully they stick around for more games. But the year after year disappointment on field at Stanford, piled on top of all of these other factors, just leaves me and probably some other Quakes fans wishing that this was just played at PayPal Park. I used to think of Stanford as a place we were invincible at, much like how I'm sure most of us feel about Levi's. But now it just doesn't excite me, and the days leading up to the game, I'm just more worried about another embarrassment rather than anything else. But like Luchi Gonzalez often used to say during his press conferences, short memory and on to the next. So in the spirit of looking ahead, we do have some more news in our latest regular segment, Ed Hernan Watch. Some strong rumors from a few different sources are reporting that Hernan will be going out on loan to Argentinos Juniors, and it seems like the duration will be for 18 months. Now, this isn't too surprising. His recent social media activity has been hinting at this for 2 weeks now, and him being gone for 2 match days just does not look good for the situation, and it just points to a move being made. The Quakes have yet to make an official statement on this, but whether this is a good or bad move for the Quakes is really going to depend on how much of his salary is going to be covered by Argentinos Jr. If they pay the full salary, it means he is no longer considered a designated player, or DP for short, for the Quakes, which opens up the possibility for making a large transfer during the summer window for a player with a large salary. If it isn't paid for in full, then the Quakes can't make that big name signing until Hernan is sold or he becomes a free agent, whichever comes first. So we'll see what those details end up being, but in terms of what this means for the team, I think if Bruce can't find a place for him and Hernan wasn't happy with his playtime or this experimental role as a left winger, it was just time to cut the losses and try to find a solution that works for everyone. It's unfortunate to potentially see such a talented player and highest paid transfer depart in this way, but it's just how things have unfolded this season. And until we get the details on this, just remember that fans complain about the Quakes owner, John Fisher, pretty regularly, but this is another example of Fisher opening his wallet for a record signing based on the guidance of the general manager, only for the whole signing to fall apart within a year. Would you trust your advisors with your money if they kept splashing it on fruitless players? In any case, hopefully we get the details and just be past all this. Up next for the Quakes are the New Jersey Red Bulls this weekend, and then hosting Austin days later for the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open Cup. Coming off such a stingy result, it's kind of hard to get my hopes up with, dreaming about an Open Cup performance, but hopefully we get the play rotations right and get one step closer to that dream of a final that would be here in San Jose. Whatever happens, we'll be here to cover it. So as always, thanks for listening. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.